doing? So, crazy story. What's happening is crazy, crazy. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, right now I've got it is Tuesday, the 3rd of June, 2025. My goodness, rapidly approaching the halfway point of the year here. In another month, we'll be there, right? Less than a month now. And today is also, ooh, today's also for Jewish people around the world, except for in Israel, where the holiday ended yesterday. But for the rest of the Jewish world, it is still the holiday of Shavuot. There's a lot of holidays where the holiday is extended by one day outside of Israel. So this is one of those holidays. Shavuot is extended by one day in the rest of the world. So if you are celebrating Shavuot, well, blessed are the cheesemakers. Uh, if you've ever seen that Monty Python bit, it's a very funny bit. But yeah, so there is that, and I hope you had a happy Shavuot or are having a happy Shavuot. For some reason, I know a lot of people who actually suffered tremendous tragedies on or around Shavuot, and well, this year I have a bunch of secondary connections to it. Some people that I know are directly connected in some way to the people who got attacked in Colorado recently, a couple days ago, at the start of Shavuot, actually. And that was just another act of anti-Semitism gone wild, right? And this Egyptian Muslim dude who had come to the United States on some visa, and then he, I guess, renewed his visa, but then he overstayed the extension, and he was living in the country, originally legally, but ultimately illegally. Uh, but see, I don't put that on, oh, it's an illegal immigration policy of whoever. I think his renewal was like a month ago, or maybe 2 months ago. It was a short term extension. So that's not about the immigration policy. Okay. I mean, arguably, you could say, well, it is from the standpoint of, well, they didn't vet the guy properly. But here's the thing, how are you going to determine if somebody has these kind of awful views but isn't going to take action upon them? Because guess what? Whether you like it or not, and we live with this in Israel every day, whether you like it or not, people have the right to harbor disgusting views. And in places like Egypt, most people harbor some pretty disgusting views when it comes to Jewish people or other people that they are not, you know, in the same ethnicity as, or in the same cultural or religious belief as, right? I mean, hell, Egypt is literally where the Muslim Brotherhood was born. So what are you thinking? You think that's not going to be a place where there's a lot of people with hateful thoughts? And you can say, well, but they come to America to have a better life. Yeah, sure. A lot of people go to America to have a better life. But guess what? First of all, a lot of them don't, right? They don't go there for that reason. They go there for entirely different reasons. Some of them do go there to become sleeper cells. Some of them do go there to become lone wolf crazy attackers like this guy apparently was. Who knows? Some of them do go there and just get brainwashed and do so stupid things. Some of them go there for a better life, and then they don't get that better life, and then they become angry. And you know what's more dangerous than a person who has nothing to lose and is angry? Pretty much nothing. So, yeah, by the way, can you tell what these things are yet? They grow tall, they grow in rows, they got a lot of leaves. These little golden colored things growing at the top of them. They're taller than me, right? And it's funny because I always mention the beginning of the field, the beginning of the sides of the field, the plants that get the most light, right? The plants on the outliers on the edges of the field, they're the shortest ones. The ones in the middle that have to compete for all the light, they grow the tallest. You'd think that they'd be the ones because they're competing for the light. Right? Normally, you'd think intuitively, well, they get less light, so they're not going to grow as tall. Well, no, it's precisely because they get less light that they fight for more light. So they grow taller than the ones that grow on the side that are essentially short, fat, and lazy. They have nothing to fight for. Right? They don't care. They get what they get. They're happy. They're satisfied. They grow to whatever height they're going to grow, and that's that. It's very telling. It says a lot about growth. Anyway, so as I was pointing out separately, hello. So these people who come to the States ostensibly to do good things, but not necessarily, right? Not everyone goes there with the American dream sort of in their heart and tries to grind their way from the bottom to the top, eventually have a house and, you know, start a family and all that kind of stuff. You know, that's not everyone's dream. You know, a lot of people go there for a lot of different reasons. It's a huge country. And this guy apparently had not done anything like this in the past and just decided to attack Jewish people because Palestine, you know, like some nonsense thing. Just like that idiot murderer. I won't say alleged because I'm not suing the guy. I'm not prosecuting the guy. I'm just a person. He did it, and he surrendered himself doing it, and he shouted "Free Palestine" as he was being put in cuffs, with the weapon, with the gunpowder on his hand, with everything. The guy did it. It's a matter of time until he's just, you know, the court process happens and he's convicted. It's ridiculous that all these media outlets keep lawyering up by using the word alleged when something's a fact. You don't have to say alleged if it's a known fact. Just because it hasn't gone through the entire legal system yet doesn't mean it's not a fact. If I drop a cup of water on the ground, I don't say I allegedly dropped the cup of water on the ground just because there wasn't a trial to determine that, okay? So anyway, so you see that these things are happening. And people will say, well, if Israel wasn't doing all this genocide in Gaza, if they weren't starving all the babies, then these attacks might not have happened. First of all, that is a ridiculous thing to say. Because that means you're justifying attacks on random people around the world because you think they might be Jewish. Like, again, none of these people knew for a fact that the people they attacked were Jewish. They didn't go up to them and say, excuse me, are you Jewish? And attack them. No, they just saw them standing in groups of people and they made assumptions based on information that they had, but they were still assumptions that those people were Jewish, and for some reason that somehow made them valid targets for violence, which under any circumstance it does not. If I just go up to people in London right now and just start attacking Muslims randomly because Hamas was Muslim and they attacked people on October 7th, oh, I'm not justified in doing that. Why not? Right? Of course, I wouldn't be. But that's the same kind of behavior that these people attacking Jews are doing. There's no difference, right? The only difference is that they have made it common, and they're trying to normalize attacking Jews just because they're Jewish. And then they say, well, it's not anti Semitic, we're just anti Zionist. If you're really that stupid that you don't know the difference uh, between what you're saying and what you're doing, and that what you're saying is completely idiotic because more than 90% of Jews are Zionists. Okay, what is a Zionist? It's a person that believes that Jews have the right to a homeland and self-determination in that homeland. That's all it is. Jews have the right to self-determination in their ancestral homeland. That's all it is. Plenty of non-Jews are Zionists too, by the way. Plenty of Christians, heck, even plenty of Muslims, plenty of Druze are Zionists. They believe that the Jewish people have the right to self-determination in their ancestral homeland. And by the way, most of the Muslims and Druze and Christians that live here in Israel, and even many who don't live in Israel, support Israel and its right to self-determination as the homeland for the Jews. That's why there's such strong support for this country and for the people of this country from people all around the world in terms of like moral support, emotional support. You know, why? Because as a whole, this country is a positive force in the world trying to do good and has done amazing things for the world. And is it full of problems? Yes, like every country, it has its share of problems. And like every good country, it's doing what it can to improve. And over time, things get better. And yes, sometimes it takes too long. And yes, sometimes it's a real pain. And yes, it's not perfect. And yes, a lot of good people suffer unnecessarily. But guess what? I could say the same thing about any country. Any country, you know, I could say the same and probably a lot more complaints about. This country is far from perfect, but it's a great country in many, many ways. Depending on who you are and where you are and all that stuff, it can be an absolutely incredible country. For some people, it's very difficult. I get it. But it's overall an amazing country. There's no question about that. And it's not just because this country gets foreign aid from wherever. No. Actually, Israel doesn't need technically the amount of foreign aid that it receives from like the United States. Okay. It could actually do, frankly, it's a negligible amount. Okay, the supposed foreign aid, the 3 billion or 4 billion or whatever of foreign aid, which is really just a line of credit. Again, I'll say it again, for Israel to go and buy American-made goods, 80% of that money that they get out of the 3 billion or 4 billion, whatever it is every year, has to be spent on American goods, which guarantees American jobs. And the other 20% has to be spent on goods we buy, like stuff made in China. And then that makes it easy for the United States to acquire intelligence when Israel reverse engineers all those goods and gives all that reverse engineered intel to America. And that is exactly what happens, and everyone knows it, right? Including the people that sell Israel the weapons. They know it too. Right? But they can't officially sell the weapons to America, so they sell it to Israel, who then reverse engineers it and gives it to America. That's what happens. Literally everyone knows it. By the way, lots of countries do this, right? Pretty much every country that wants to be in the military industry game, they all do this, right? They all have ways of buying directly or through secondary agents, etc. So this isn't like something that only Israel is doing and nobody else. No, plenty of countries can only sell to certain countries, and they reverse engineer stuff that they buy for intelligent reasons. And in certain cases, they have special relationships with other countries that help them out, etc. So they give them that intel. This is not like a unique U.S. Israel relationship thing. It may seem to you like it's uniquely U.S. and Israeli, but it's not. And if you believe it is, well, then you're a sucker. And I have a bridge to sell you, right? Or I have a beach to sell you in South Dakota. So, yeah, there's a lot of hatred around the world for things Israel does, which is ridiculous. And they take it out on Jewish people, who, by the way, may have absolutely nothing to do, and usually don't, with what's going on in Israel. And even the ones who were attacked at this peaceful protest in Colorado, do you even know what they were protesting for? They were protesting for the release of the hostages. Do you realize how many people in Israel protest for the release of the hostages that are very much anti the Israeli government? Like, very, very much anti the Israeli government, right? So when you're attacking people that are protesting for the release of hostages, you're probably attacking people that, if you weren't attacking them, might be philosophically closer to you than you might think. But once you attack them, well, you change that formula a little bit, don't you? You change that equation, you change that balance in that relationship. Suddenly you make it so that those people don't like you so much. Why? Well, you just attacked a bunch of innocent people for no reason. What do you think the likely outcome is going to be? Are they going to be more sympathetic to your views? Equally sympathetic to your views as before, or less sympathetic to your views? Normally, when you attack people, they become less sympathetic to your views. I know, that's crazy. Of course, it does depend on the context, because it could be you attacked them by accident, it could be there was a misunderstanding, it could be a lot of things. But generally speaking, when you attack people out of hatred and you intentionally target them out of hatred, it's not going to end well in terms of relationship building. By the way, other stuff you might have noticed that happened in the last several days. That I've been telling you that would probably happen. The not surprising. Hold on one second. The not surprising little dump and then revitalization of a bunch of assets across the crypto markets. I'll probably make a separate video about that. But it wasn't just across crypto, it was across a bunch of different assets. But we'll talk about that in a separate video. Anyway, yeah, for now, is at a stage where it is not just fighting for its survival, which is technically constantly doing, but it is at a stage where it is actually mopping up really what's left of the Hamas, trying to finish them off in order to hopefully be able to, force them to the point where they decide, okay, we may as well surrender because the leaders are all gone several times over. In terms of the leaders in Gaza, there's no point in fighting this stupid war anymore. We're all just getting wasted. All of the commanders are gone. The only people who are left on the ground. The plan for the Hamas to blockade the food aid getting to the Gazans directly is failing miserably with every passing day that the Americans and Israelis successfully hand out food directly rather than handing it to Hamas, which then proceeds to and hide away with it, which they did now for the past year and a half. And finally, after last week, when we saw the local people in Gaza demand satisfaction and literally break into the warehouses of the World Food Program, which was allowing Hamas to guard food warehouses and to not distribute the food that it had to the people it was intended for. So literally the United Nations was starving the people of Gaza and blaming Israel, saying there's a starvation in Gaza. Yeah, you know who was causing any starvation in Gaza? The United Nations, because they're in line with the Hamas. Literally, the United Nations and the World Food Program are in cahoots with Hamas. So what should Israel do about that? Well, Israel did the right thing, if you ask me. They began to feed the people directly by giving them the aid boxes directly with the United States together in a coordinated effort. And then what did the Israel hater idiots say? Oh, look at these Jews, they're just trying to profit from the poor Palestinians by giving them mostly Israeli food. What? That's right. People who hate Israel idiotically said that Israel is trying to make a profit by giving them, not charging them, giving them Israeli products. Mostly Israeli products, by the way. Some of them reportedly aren't even Israeli, but mostly Israeli products. But even if all of them are Israeli products, what do these people expect? What do they expect Israel to go and buy and import food from other countries? Are they supposed to bring in some Australian lamb, some French escargot, maybe some Japanese sushi? Are they kidding me? Like, it 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 literally you can't win if you do, you can't win if you don't. It's blame the Jews no matter what. Blame Israel no matter what. That's what these hateful anti-Semites do. Because that's all they have in their heart is hatred. They don't have any love in their heart. And that's why the way they are. That's why they're the miserable losers of the world. And yeah, I say that because that's what they are. Right? Yeah, they're perennially, for millennia, the biggest haters on the planet. All they want to do is hate Jews. That's all they care about. They don't care about a damn thing in life except to hate Jews. And then they wonder why things don't go their way. Well, maybe you didn't spend your life just hating Jews. Maybe you did something positive. But think about how insane that is. To complain, oh, the Palestinians are starving, Israelis won't give them any food. First of all, why didn't Egypt give them food? Egypt could have given them more food. Egypt could have said, hey, Israel, we know you're controlling this border right now because of the war. Here's a bunch of food. Go ahead and check it. And as long as you think it's, as long as you have no problem with it, go ahead and give it to them. They got tons of food in Egypt. Complete with Arabic packaging and everything. If that's somehow supposed to make these people feel better. But Egypt didn't volunteer to give them food. Why? Because Egypt's a country of like 100 million people that are mostly poor. They can't afford to give food. All the food aid that has come through Egypt, right, has come mostly from donations from other countries. Very little has actually come from Egypt itself. And whatever did come from Egypt, guess what? It was paid for by other countries, largely the United States. So the United States and Israel decided, hey, the easiest thing is if we just jointly coordinate a distribution effort. And why wouldn't Israel give these people food that they have locally on hand, available at the best possible price to them, since they are giving this stuff away to the recipients? Right? So they did literally the best, most efficient, cost-effective maneuver that they could do for the starving people to get their food and to get them food into their hands and into their mouths as quickly as possible. But no, somehow Israel is still to blame for not giving them, I don't know, gourmet cuisine delivered. I mean, it's just insane. The complaints are just insane. But that's what we're dealing with. That really is what we're dealing with here in Israel. We have these crazy, crazy people demanding, I don't know what, freshly imported food, which, by the way, keep in mind, as much as the Hamas has had its storehouses raided, they still hold a huge amount of food. They still hold months and months of food, probably a year's worth of supplies at this point, in terms of like goods that won't expire very quickly. In terms of stuff that will expire quickly, that's why they've been giving. It's asinine, because like the food that the Hamas has, it's not like they stole it. It's aid. So no matter what they give to the Gazan people shouldn't be thanking them. They should be taking it and demanding it. It's for them. They're supposed to be getting it for free. They're supposed to have received it already more than a year and a half ago, right? And Hamas has just been like siphoning this stuff off, selling it on the market to sustain their stupid war. When people are angry, or why doesn't Israel, these like idiots like Piers Morgan, I'm sorry, but hey, he might have started off during the last 2 years by supporting Israel, but now he's completely switched sides because he's an asshat and because his government has said Israel must end the war. Okay, just because you got a bunch of like extreme left-winger idiots in charge of the British government right now, which is apparently what you have, that doesn't mean Piers Morgan is suddenly a smart guy siding on the right side of history. No, he's an idiot on the wrong side of history, just like the British government, just like the French government, just like the frickin' every government, the Spanish government, all these idiots who are saying they're going to recognize Palestine. Hey, I tell you what, why don't you go ahead and recognize Palestine? Give them a piece of your country. Give them a piece of your land. Call it Palestine. Why should Israel have to give land to a people that has vanquished time and time again in battle? What other nation surrenders land to the nation that launched a war against it and that it vanquished in battle? Did the Americans give more land to Germany? Did they make the Nazi Empire bigger after World War II? You should know that the answer is obviously no. Right? If you don't know that, I don't know what to tell you. So that's the kind of stupid shit we're dealing with right now. And it's not fun. It's not fun at all, to be honest. We're dealing with a war. And here's the thing. People are saying, this war never ends. It's so long, blah, blah, blah. How long did the war in Syria last? Do you even know? Until Bashar Assad was overthrown. How long did that war last? Do you even know? Well, it started in 2000 and what? You don't even know. Okay. Here's a clue. 2000. It started then, and it had up until 2000, end of 2024. So 13 years. How long did the American wars in Iraq and Afghanistan last? Like until they actually pulled out the troops? Just about how long? Just about 2 decades. That's right. 20 years. That's why they called them the Forever Wars. Because they just lasted and lasted and lasted. They were the longest wars America ever fought. 20 years. Okay, you might say, well, one was technically 18 and a half or 19, and the other one was really like, just over like 20 or whatever. They were 20-year wars. There were people who were literally not born when those wars started, who served in the military in those wars by the time they ended. That has not happened in another American war. But no, somehow Israel, that's been at war with Hamas, a long time for a war in Israel, but certainly not the longest. Israel had to engage with Lebanon for many years. right? About 18 years when it was in southern Lebanon, which still was not as long as the wars of Iraq and Afghanistan, right? But nobody said anything about the fact that America was in Iraq and Afghanistan for no, they don't. That's no, not a problem, right? Lasted through 4 different presidential administrations, right? 2 George Bush administrations, 2 Obama administrations, a Trump administration, and then they finally got, cleaned up or whatever, closed completely by Biden. So technically, 4 different presidents over how many terms? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, more than 5 terms. All right, the beginning of the 6th term, they got ended. It's crazy, but that's the reality. These wars taking too long. It's taking too long. Israel should stop the war. Why? It hasn't finished its mission. Why should it just stop its mission halfway through? Its mission is to rescue the hostages and to get rid of Hamas to make sure they can never do this again. Why should Israel just stop now? Well, it's not convenient for your media schedule, not convenient for your political interests. Why should Israel care about that? Oh, because then you'll lose support of the EU, and the EU is the most important trading partner of Israel. Yeah, it's the most important trading partner of Israel for now. Do you think EU is always going to be the most important trading partner of Israel? I highly doubt it. You know who has more money per capita than Europeans and would do more business with Israel if it could? I challenge you to Google it. By the way, some of those countries may have recent peace agreements with Israel. Some of them may be looking at inking new peace agreements with Israel. Just saying. So that's the long and short of it, what's happening with Israel right now and with the people that hate Israel, like violently, in an evil way. You want to hate Israel, like, I hate Israel. It does, it has all these terrible government policies and they don't help citizens. A lot of criticisms about the Israeli government, like, a lot, okay? It's not a perfect place. I keep saying that. But it is a place where, for the most part, right, the government wants to be democratic. I've written many things saying Israel's not really a democracy, okay? On paper, you can call it a parliamentary democracy. In my book, anytime you allow people to only vote for party lists and not for direct candidates, to me that's not a real democracy. But in Israel, that's what we call a democracy. In my book, it's not a real democracy. A real democracy would be something more in line with the UK, where you vote for a specific candidate, or the United States, where you vote for specific candidates. Those are democracies, right? France, you vote for specific candidates. In Israel, you really vote for party lists. And the party determines who's on the list. You vote for parties, and they determine who's on the top of the list, the middle of the list, the bottom of the list. And the bigger the party, obviously, the more competitors there are for the top of the list, the middle of the list, and the bottom of the list. There's always a lot of horse trading that goes on before, during, and after elections. And to me, that makes the whole process not exactly what I call real democratic, or a real democracy in that sense. But it is a democracy in the sense that people do have the right to vote, and people do change the leadership and do change the politicians in power on a regular basis. It's undeniable. You can't say that Israel doesn't have, that people don't have the right to vote here. They absolutely do, and they vote early and often. they do vote. Pretty high voter turnout rate. Not the highest in the world. It's certainly not like Australia or something where you have to vote, or else you get a fine. Like you're required to vote there unless you have some, like, I don't know, medical reason that you can't make it to the voting booth or something. Um, yeah, but like in Israel, people vote and they speak their mind, and there is absolutely freedom of expression. You can criticize the government all day. There have been cases, just like in any country, where people have been, taken in for questioning or whatever, and wrongly, okay, for criticizing government or for criticizing policies or whatever. Maybe they chose a stupid time to do it, but they had every right to do it, and it was wrong to incarcerate them, even just to detain them. It's just wrong because you have the right to say what you want. And there is a sort of free press, but again, as a strong critic, I will say the fact that any news organization in Israel, like any Israeli-based news organization, official media or whatever you want to call it, big news media groups, the fact that any of them take any kind of subsidy from the government, to me, means they're not really free press, because the government can say, hey, well, if you say this, then maybe we won't give you as much of a subsidy next year. But the fact is, Israeli media is renowned to be, and if you've ever read any Israeli media, you'll see it's constantly criticizing Israeli government actions, right, and policies. I mean, constantly. It's one of the most self-critical governments, or media industries about the government in the world, no question about it. Like, really, no question about it. It's the press here is very free to criticize the government, and they do, as they should. That is their job. You should not be giving government a free pass. This is a tough job to be in government, and you should expect tough questions, whether you like it or not. If you can't handle that, don't be in government. Um, so I have a lot of criticisms about Israel, and it's not a perfect democracy, but neither is the U.S. The U.S. is constantly working to improve itself. So is Israel. So are many countries. Um, but it is at least a place where people can live, for the most part, at least within the normal standard distribution. People can live freely, up to them how they live, as long as they follow the law, as long as they're peaceful and they're law abiding. They don't have any problems, and the government, for most people within the normal standard distribution, most people are not generally bothered by the government. The government doesn't impose itself on their lives that much, other than the obvious things like where the army demands years of service from people when they're relatively young, when they're new adults, when they turn adults, and obviously the usual things that you have in any country, taxes and things like that. But it's a pretty free country, and people can be who they want to be, and people can do what they basically want to do. In many ways, it's like America in that sense. And it has a Western value. It has, where do Western values come from? Supposed Judeo-Christian values. They come from Israel. Judeo-Christian values come from Judeo values, right? They were evolved with the Christian part, and that evolved into what we call Western values. And you could add the Greek values in there as well, because that also, you could add some elements, some key components like democracy, in the way that the Greek democracy was created, right? Jewish democracy is really like the whole notion of debating and disagreeing and discussing and essentially arguing in a friendly way. That's what yeshivas are all about, right? You go there and you discuss all day long in order to understand things better and attain a higher level of humanity, right? A higher level of being. Um, and Greek democracy is really more about the vote, right? Yeah, you have that in Judaism too, but not so much, because in ancient Judaism it was more about kings and stuff. And in ancient Greece you already had democracy. But Judaism quickly adopted the Greek democratic approach, especially once the Greeks conquered this land. They introduced the whole concept, Yes, they introduced Hellenistic things as well that the Jews did not want, but things like the democratic right to vote, once the Jews didn't have a king anymore and they were living under the yoke of the Greek Empire, well, they saw that it wasn't so bad to live in a society where at least they had the right, if they became Greek, if they said that they became Greek, that they had the right to vote, right? which they could not do even under their own system before. But arguably, when they were living freely under their own system with the king and everything, well, that was the system they chose, so that's what they wanted. But yeah, anyway, I've gone on a lot longer than I thought I would today about this stuff. Maybe I need to make a video about the market real quick. Or maybe I got something else to do. We'll see. Got so many things going on today. And yeah, that's going to do it for now. I didn't even get into what happened in Ukraine and in Russia with the whole long range bombing attack deep inside of Russia and the air bases. That's a frankly formidable thing that happened, using drones to attack it. Whether you I don't care if you side one way or the other there. I mean, personally I do care, but I know people are pro Russia and people, for whatever reason, people are pro Ukraine and some people try to be neutral. I'm really not neutral about it. To me, Russia is the clear aggressor. Putin is the clear aggressor. I don't put this on the Russians. I put this on Putin. He's the aggressor, and I don't view Zelensky as some particularly corrupt person. To me, that's just an anti-Semitic trope. That's Russian propaganda, and they use it because he's Jewish. They say these awful things about him because he's Jewish, even though he's not a religious Jew, right? He's Jewish, and so they attack him and they accuse him of all these things that are classic anti-Semitic tropes. And most people who believe it aren't even aware of it, frankly, right? I know many good people who support Israel 100%, don't like Hamas, don't like all the horrible things that are happening to Israel, absolutely support Israel's right to defend itself, don't like all the anti-Semitism, don't like all those disgusting things people say about Jews and Israelis. But when it comes to Ukraine, for some reason, oh yeah, Zelensky is this conniving little shrewd guy who's like dishonest and corrupt. It's all lies. It's all the same exact anti-Semitic tropes that they say about Israelis and Jews. They're saying about Zelensky for the exact same reason, because he's a Jewish president of Ukraine. And they want to make it, I mean, they're not even hiding that fact, right? It's Russian propaganda against the head of state of Ukraine. And they're attacking him in that way because they know that, one, it will trigger certain responses from all kinds of different people across all kinds of different demographics. In Russia, it'll make people who hate Jews be more angry towards Ukraine because they say, look, the Jews control Ukraine. Two, in Ukraine, there are obviously a small amount of crazy people who also hate Jews, and it reminds them that their president is Jewish. And even though most of them actually back the president, including a lot of people who hate Jews, yeah, they still don't like the fact that they have a Jewish president, and when they're reminded of it, it pisses them off. And then there's other people around the world who also are triggered in that way, one way or the other. Anyway, so it's a messed up situation. Right? Lebanese people fighting Hezbollah. Who is Hezbollah? They're a colonizing, invading proxy army of Iran. And you can say, no, they're Lebanese people. Some of them are Lebanese people, but their leaders were taught and trained in Iran. And they are an Iranian proxy, funded by Iran. They would not exist without Iran's help. They certainly wouldn't be nearly the size that they are without Iran's help. They wouldn't have nearly the arsenal that they have without Iran's help, etc., etc. Why is it that you're not aware of this? How many people died in the war with the Houthis in Saudi Arabia? Do you even know? How many people died in the war in Yemen between the Houthis and the non-Houthi Yemenis, right? The regular government of Yemen. Do you even know? Do you know that there's 60 nations right now at war? 60 people groups, nations, whatever you want to call them. There's 60 different people fighting 30 different wars right now around the world. Oh, is it 58 fighting 29? It's 60 different people group, roughly, right now on this earth, fighting 29 or 30 wars right now on this earth. Did you even know that? Can you even name 5 of them besides the ones that I've already mentioned in this little video in the last couple minutes? Can you even name 2 of them? 1 of them? outside of the ones that I've mentioned. The chances are, if you don't live in one of those areas where they're fighting, or in one of those countries, or if you're not a member of a people group that's actually involved in a war right now, you probably can't name a single war that's happening outside of Israel versus Hamas, or Israel versus the Houthis, or Israel versus whoever the hell is attacking Israel, Iran, or Ukraine and Russia, right? You probably still think America's still fighting the forever wars in some way. Oh, well, the Americans they still have some bases in Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan. No, they really don't. Right? They had a couple of forward operating bases inside of Syria and Iraq. Technically, yeah, but they're not fighting a war, right? Can you even name a war outside of the obvious ones? Israel versus Hamas, Israel versus Iran, Israel versus the Houthis, Ukraine versus Russia. Can you name a war apart from that? And if you live in an area where any of those are fought, can you name a war that's not directly affecting you apart from the ones I just mentioned? Right? Or if you're a member of a people group of one of those wars, can you name a war that's not affecting you or your people group? Most people can't. No shame if you can't. But that's the reality we're living in. Right? There's lots of wars happening right now. For some reason, all the attention comes on Israel. Comes to Israel. Why? Because Jews are news. No Jews, no news. That's why. Right? What does that mean, Jews are news? That means that hating Jews is always a popular zeitgeist with some people. Right? It's always in vogue with some people. Attacking Jews, attacking Israel, it's always in vogue. It's always in fashion with a certain huge section of the population of the world. Always. Why? Because people would rather blame Jews than look in the mirror and deal with their own failures. That's why. People would rather look at the Jews and say it's their fault that these bad things are happening to us, even though the Jews have nothing to do with them whatsoever. That is literally where classic anti-Semitism stems from, dating back thousands of years. The Greeks had it. They were anti-Semitic in many ways. Yes, they also let the Jews adhere to Hellenistic culture and become part of their society so that they would no longer suffer the anti-Semitism. But they had the anti-Semitism in the first place, which is why they did that. The Romans, right? The Persians, you name it. There isn't one culture that ever had a negative interaction with Jews and conquered Israel or conquered the kingdom of Judea, right? Overran the Jewish people, subjugated Jewish people in Israel or anywhere else around the world that didn't have elements of anti-Semitism for thousands of years. Under the Ottomans, under the Arabs, under the Christian Crusaders, under the Europeans in Europe, even in America. America has not always been a wonderful place for most Jews to live. It hasn't been. In fact, until after the establishment of the State of Israel, it was very often, and even afterwards, by the way, it was very often quite challenging for people to be there and grow up Jewish. And I can tell you, I grew up in America for many years, and I was attacked by anti-Semites very often, including in New York City, as well as other places you might not expect. But right there in Manhattan, the heart of New York, anti-Semites attacked me. Literally lived on the same street as me and would attack me just because I was Jewish. So it's not, and we're talking like, this isn't like the 1940s or 50s. Yeah. Sure, it's several decades ago, but it's not like it was like the 40s or 50s or even the 60s, right? Talking later, when there was already a Jewish mayor in New York, when Ed Koch was already the mayor, right? There was still anti-Semitism there. And guess what? There still is today. Go to Columbia University, see how they're talking about the Jewish people, not just Israel. They're not just anti-Zionist. And again, when they say they're anti-Zionist, they're anti-Semitic. Because again, more than 90% of Jews support the right of Jews to have self-determination in their ancestral homeland. That is what Zionism is. If you're against that and you're Jewish, then you are what we call a self-hating Jew, which you have every right to be. That's part of our culture. If you don't think the Jews have a right to their own homeland, you are a self-hating Jew, or you have some kind of messianic interpretation of the Bible where you believe that only the Messiah can recreate the state of Israel, which is a perfectly legitimate interpretation of the Bible. There are many Jews who believed that before Israel was a state. But by now, most Jews have accepted the fact that it's better to have an Israel than not. It's better for the Jewish people that Israel exists than not. There are people who don't believe that. They're considered extreme crackpots, extreme fringe crackpots, like Nature Karta and other groups similar to that. There are some groups like that who don't believe Israel should exist, and they are Jewish. And they believe only the Messiah can recreate this, a Jewish kingdom or whatever. Well, Israel's not a kingdom, it's a state. And it's not run by Jewish law. Never was it intended to be. It is a state for the Jews, by the Jews, about the Jews, but it's not a Jewish state in terms of the law. It is a secular state that, yes, does have some Jewish law attached to it, some things that are relevant to Jewish law that are attached to it, but most of the laws here are secular, just as they are in modern Western European countries or the United States or Canada. Okay, it's a secular country by law, which is a good thing because it means that anyone who wants to be as religious as they want to be of any particular flavor can be without suffering the prejudice of a particular strand of religion. And I know some people will say, well, that's not good for Israel. We should be more autocratic or we should be more theocratic. Listen, the beauty of Israel, the way it is you have the right to believe that. If you lived in a theocracy, you wouldn't necessarily have the right to believe in what you believe. You might think that we have to believe this way, and the state might say, no, we are a theocracy, we are religious, but we don't believe this way, we believe that way. And if you don't believe that way, then you're in big trouble. Whereas in a secular society, you can believe whichever bloody way you want. As long as you're peaceful and law-abiding, nobody gives a damn. Frankly, to me, that's a much better system. Again, like I said, I have a lot of criticisms about Israel, but there are also a lot of wonderful things you can say about it. Yeah, this live stream has been going on a long time. I hope you all enjoyed watching, and leave a comment, like, subscribe. I'll do all that stuff. And see you guys in the next one. Peace. Shalom.